Culture of the Auburn football program headed in the right direction. Mike G joins us to discuss that and much more on this live edition of the Uptempo podcast.
You are now listening to the Rapport Podcast Network.
Let's go. Up-tempo gang, Auburn family. Hope everybody's having a good week. Hope everybody's having a blessed Tuesday night. Dustin and Blake back with you guys. Our guy Mike G will be joining us shortly. He is on the way. But before we get started with Mike G, Blake, some news came out today, man. See it from the recruiting side of things, saying that it appears that Auburn has pivoted from Juju Lewis. It looks like Auburn tried to get kind of a resolution last week. Seems like they weren't able to come to that resolution, and now we are being told that Auburn will begin to look elsewhere. Something that me and you kind of talked about and kind of hinted at our members, like could possibly be the end result the whole time. But when you're in it for a recruit of that caliber and he's listening to you, you got to kind of play it out and see how it goes, right? I will be honest though, Blake, I thought that we would go a couple more weeks. Me and you had kind of said big cat, but I guess I'll ask you this as we get started here. Do you think that Hugh Freeze and staff maybe coming into Big Cat, they want to kind of already have a quarterback lined up, or at least be kind of moving in the direction versus going to Big Cat and then trying to figure it out from there? You think kind of they wanted to have some movement before we get to Big Cat on that front?
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to go into Big Cat and then him leave Big Cat uncommitted, kind of like a KJ Bolden. And then you're sitting here going, well, we had a couple receivers here. We didn't have a quarterback commit. We still don't have a quarterback. Those receivers aren't going to commit without a quarterback. Like, it's a tough spot. It's a sticky situation, right? So I think this is a good thing. Like, obviously we would have loved for Juju to end up at Auburn, and he still may, right? Like, we don't know 100%, but some insiders have said, hey, we feel like Auburn's pivoting, going in a different direction. What better direction to look than Mobile, Alabama? KJ Lacey. I know Deuce Knight is kind of still being thrown out there. I think he's a heck of a player. KJ Lacey really gives me Bryce Young type vibes. I think he's a heck of a player, and I do hate hearing he was only good because of Ryan Williams. I've said this before. I think the kid is very talented. He's a playmaker. He's very athletic. Dustin did some film breakdown of him, and he went up to Enterprise, and we know what kind of athletes Enterprise has, right? Eric Winters, we got a commitment out of him, so he put on a show, and I think he's a dang good quarterback, and I would love to have him at Auburn. The Deuce Knight kid, we know he's bounced around a little bit, and he played Saraland last year, and he took him to overtime. That was a heck of a game on ESPN. He's a baller. You know, he's up there in where's he at? Notre Dame, committed to Notre Dame, I believe.
Yeah, committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah. So look, yeah, one, he's extremely smart kid, right? Because Notre Dame, crazy academic school. So two, Notre Dame still recruits at the top. They don't play around. They're top 10, top 15 every year. They're a heck of a football program. They're one of the greats in college football. So we kind of say, like, look at the list. Who's going after these guys? KJ is committed to Texas right now. Sark's all over him. So the list of schools, it's there for both of these cats. And I think you got to turn the focus to KJ a little bit more than Deuce, though, because KJ is in your backyard. There's been rumors that could KJ flip? Like, Auburn's turning the heat up. Just about a month ago, people were saying that they kind of felt like KJ was kind of maybe thinking about Auburn, and then you got Perry Thompson making TikToks about could KJ flip? All of this stuff. I think you gotta get into Saraland High School. There's a 2026 guy out of Saraland that you have offered. I think that could play. If KJ Lacey ends up at Auburn, what about Antonio Coleman? Like, how does that play out? You know, I think this could be a big time move for the Auburn Tigers, Dustin.
Yeah, and I know that you said you see a lot of Bryce Young. I like that comparison. I'll say this, even if KJ Lacey's not like Bryce Young, top
Yeah,
overall pick in the draft, I could certainly see like a Malik Willis route
yeah,
where I certainly can see Hugh Freeze doing what he did with Malik Willis with KJ Lacey. And let's see, Brett said, ask Charlie 5 what he heard about KJ and his abilities. We'll have Charlie back on soon and we'll talk about it. But I mean, me and Blake have seen KJ play up close and in person. He is a D1 prospect. And I see D says that KJ is a project. Majority of guys are, and I know a lot of the perception about Juju Lewis has kind of been that like he could come in and push to start from day one.
What's wrong with the project?
What's at quarterback? I mean, most of them are, aren't they?
So Walker White, all right, like that's a project. That's a guy that's going to have to come in. He's going to have to buy his time. He's going to have to learn the playbook. I think that fits him. And KJ Lacey, what's wrong with that? What I think that would be the best thing for Auburn's quarterback room. You get a guy like KJ. You've got Hank Brown in there. You've got Holden in there. You've got Walker in there. You've got depth. You got guys competing. Bring the best out of them. Just because Auburn misses on Juju Lewis, I think there's plenty of heat around KJ, and I think he could be a heck of a player whenever his number does get called at Auburn, if he ends up on the Plains.
Yeah, and we got Mike G about to bring him in here. I just want to say real quick on this whole Juju thing. He's reclassified, right? So he's only this will be his third year of college ball, or excuse me, high school ball, and then he's going up. So this idea that he was going to be 17 years old and ready to start at an SEC program at 17, 18 years old, I always had a little bit of reservation on that. I'm not saying he's not a heck of a talent. Like the accuracy is there, and for a kid that young to already be able to have that kind of ball placement, it's super impressive. But look, Auburn is putting together one hell of an offensive line class. After we all saw what we did last year in the wide receiver class, it's not going to be a tough sell. Put together something competent on the field in the passing game this year. Clear 1,700 yards, do a little bit better than that. You'll find somebody that'll be able to come and play behind this offensive line that'll want to throw to Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Cam Coleman, and we know that he's going to continue to recruit at that position. But let's bring in Mike G, our guy Mike. What's up, baby? How you doing tonight?
What's up, guys? Good. Listen, I want to get tonight kicked off giving you guys your flowers for the stance that you took on Juju Lewis.
Thank you, buddy.
And what we've seen. Now, I had said somebody had asked me about the Juju thing, guys, quietly, and I was just like, look, man, if they can get him, they can get him. I think that it looked really good. But did anybody see his Elite 11 tape?
I haven't seen
they put like a highlight reel of him like throwing against air, and Isaac messaged me privately and was like, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. Ultimately, On3 dropped him a star. And look, man, it was going to be a huge investment to get Juju Lewis here. And, it's almost like these teams are managing salary caps. So, look, man, this might be a blessing in disguise. Maybe KJ Lacey is a better quarterback. Like, we'll see, how it goes. But, yeah, I just wanted to start by saying I think the up-tempo has been the most rational voices around Juju Lewis. Right, because fans they tend to get caught up in the hype around a certain prospect, and they get caught up in star ratings. And Hugh Freeze has to find guys that he evaluates as the best fit for this team, and I think that he'll continue to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, Mike, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson out there. And let me ask you this before we get started on what we had our topic for tonight. Doesn't it kind of feel like whatever happens in this quarterback room, that even like we know that we all kind of hope that Walker White is next up, but he'll still be a redshirt freshman next year. I think there's still going to be like a portal addition after Payton Thorne, right? That maybe try to kind of bridge the gap before Walker's ready. Like, I just feel like there's going to be another big time portal addition that's going to come in at the end of this offseason and compete for that starting spot. And I felt like that even if Juju Lewis was coming in, this idea that it was just going to be handed to Juju, I never was really with that.
The problem is the investment that goes into getting one prospect or another. Now, hear me out on this one. You go out and you get a big-time portal prospect, you're spending big-time money. Coaches have already said you're not spending less than $1 million and getting a top portal prospect. But even if you spent $400,000 or $500,000, that's still a sizable investment for a guy who still may not start. This is why I think there may be a chance, Dustin, that they don't get a prospect from the portal. And he just says, look, I've got Hank and I've got Walker, and I'm the quarterback guru, so I'm going to make one of these guys a star. Then I'm going to go find the next guy from high school, get him in the system, and one of these two dudes is going to start for the next couple of years while that guy develops. And then I'll see where I'm at in a couple of years, and if I need to go back to the portal to find it because the guys that I recruited didn't work out. It's going to have to be a healthy mix of both. And, look, man, you rolled the dice on Payton Thorne. I still think we see a better version of Payton Thorne this year than Auburn fans saw last year. But, we'll see where it lands. I don't know. Like, I'm not convinced that they're going to go out and get a big-time portal prospect. Now, they may bring a guy in, but will he be big-time, though? Right. Because big-time means you spent big-time money. And, you're not getting a top portal QB to come in here for free. And if you're spending that kind of money, like, are we in a place as a fan base where we're willing to accept that the coach may spend that kind of money and then still say you're not going to play, you're not the best, you're going to have to compete? Do we think that Payton Thorne competed for the starting job here?
No, it hasn't felt like it. Okay,
okay, all right, yeah. I'm just saying I don't know why that would change. But, just my thought.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess on that point, it's kind of up to some of those guys, right? Like if Hank Brown shows and if he gets the opportunity this year in backup reps and in practice, he kind of gains the confidence of the staff. Or if Walker White shows as the season goes on, okay, I'm grasping the offense and I'm that guy. I think that kind of would probably play into Hugh's decision. But Mike, we want to talk about culture tonight because you have interviewed coaches, players. You've been kind of talking to everybody on all sides around everything over there at Auburn. And I want to start right here. I thought that Rivaldo Fairweather's comments after the bowl game in Nashville needed to be said. And I think it needed to be said a couple games before it was said, but probably New Mexico State. But I'm glad that at some point it was said. And if he basically just called guys out, Mike. He said guys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's leading to what we're seeing here on Saturday. As you kind of talked to the players and been around the team a little bit, do you sense any uptick in accountability just from player to player?
Yes, I do. And I think that the coaching staff, Dustin, has taken a different approach to this since last year. So, we say this all the time when we do these interviews. The part that you see on camera is not all that gets talked about. It's just only the part that I can put on camera. And I can tell you from the private parts of those conversations, I think team culture is up. I think that there's more alignment from a staff perspective. That's spilled onto the athletes. So look, man, it's no secret. They fired both coordinators in year one. And one of those guys actually coached a pretty good defense. But he's out of here. Why? Culture. Culture is why he's out of here. I'm telling you this right now. Auburn was quiet about why Ron Roberts is gone. Personally, I think they should have been a little bit louder about why he was gone for integrity's sake. But look, man, they decided to go whatever path they decided to go with it. But like I think that he was on the wrong side of the culture issue that they had last year.
Yep. And
how he decided the approach that he took. So you made that change and, you set that expectation now to say, hey, listen, when we made this change, this is what our guys are telling us. This is what the way we believe it needs to go. And it's going to go there. So, yeah, man, I mean, the culmination of all the interviews I've done, I would say that culture is in a really good spot.
So I asked you about the players right there and you kind of answered this question, but just kind of expand on it a little bit. We all talk about the players. We all get frustrated at the players. We're the ones, we see them. They're the ones out there on the field, dropping the ball, not making the plays, whatever it is. But it's hard. You mentioned the culture issue there with Ron Roberts. It's kind of hard to ask the players to do that when you see Wesley McGriff step away halfway through the season and you're hearing about the issues with Ron Roberts and all that. And we see some players then say we might go to the portal, and then Ron Roberts goes to Florida, and all of a sudden those guys leave, get out of the portal and come back to Auburn. Like, you don't have to be a rocket science. You can just connect the dots and figure this out. Yeah. Right. So do you think that, and although I think it was a little bit of a different scenario on the offensive side, there's still no arguing that on game days it didn't work. So bringing in those two coaches, do you think that like top down now, okay, there's more alignment with the staff, and then the players see that, and like kind of, because it's hard to ask the players to have culture all together, right, when the coaches don't have it going on.
Yeah, look, man, we've heard the whole attitude reflects leadership and all that stuff, so I won't beat you guys over the head with it. But ultimately, some guys in the program were emulating what they were seeing from the coaches. And, Hugh Freeze took a long look at his staff, and, they had to come to Jesus about the examples that they need to be setting, the things that they need to say, what direction, this thing is going to move one direction, and it's Hugh Freeze's direction. Right. So anybody who had a different idea about how to do it is out of here. I'll tell you that right now. Right. Hugh Freeze is going to run this thing the way that he sees it. And, look, man, whether it's right or wrong, he's the head coach. You die on that hill. That's the guy you're paying $6.5 million a year. So you die or you thrive by what he thinks is the best, course of action. So, I think that guys see that. And I see this across sports, guys. Right. Like, I know we're talking football, but I'll tell you, you guys know I'm everywhere. And I was sitting in on women's basketball. Now, I feel okay telling this story now. And they were doing, in the middle of practice, Johnny Harris stops practice. And they have to run. They have to do these like suicide type runs. I forgot what they call them, but it was awful. Like, I almost had a heart attack watching them. And, I leaned over to an assistant and I was like, is this normal in the middle of practice? And they were like, it's a punishment run because somebody was late to something. Right. So there was one girl standing off to the side. I won't say who she is. And the rest of them were running. And I was just like, was she the only one that wasn't late? And she was like, no, she was the one that was late.
Yeah, it's tough.
Oh, man.
And she had to stand on the side and watch her teammates legit die doing this workout. Right now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You might ask. Well, the reason that you do that is you're teaching team accountability. Right? If one person does it, everybody does it. Mm-hmm. Right? So the culture is either going to get that person who was late in line, or quite frankly, they're going to whoop her ass if she keeps doing it.
Yep.
Right?
Because I don't want to run like that anymore.
Yep.
So that's how you get everybody on the same page. The fairy tale ending to that story was the player that was the reason they had to run that day came back to practice with a better attitude and has been thriving since.
Love that.
Right? That's the Auburn way, man. Right? And that's what you hope Hugh Freeze is building on the football side of it, where you're saying, listen, man, no one person is going to win or lose this for us. We're going to win or lose as a team together. So when one of you messes up, we all mess up. And that's the thing that he's trying to build. Like I said, I admire Johnny Harris a lot for how she decides to run her program. But to me, in my mind, I'm like, that's what you hope all your coaches are doing. You're teaching that level of accountability to say, like, hey, listen, instead of having everybody who was on time watch the girl who was late run, I'm going to do it the other way around, and I'm going to let the culture straighten it out.
Love that.
Oh, man, it was great. One girl, I'm telling you, didn't make it through the run, and she got kicked out of practice. she like, listen, man, it was hard. And man, I'm telling you, right, like, in sports, when your body is at its physical limits, you have a choice. You can quit, or you can just give that extra 10% that you don't have for the team. And if you quit in practice, you're going to quit on the field on game day.
Yep.
And the message that she was sending was, I'm not going to let you quit on your teammates.
Love that.
Now, think about let me bring this full circle. Think about what Rivaldo Fairweather said after that bowl game. He essentially said there were guys in that locker room who would quit on their team.
Yep.
Because they weren't doing the things that they need to do in practice. So we got to fix that, because when it comes, that's how you get beat by Maryland. That's how you get beat by New Mexico State.
Yep.
That's how you let 4th and 31 happen. You got to fix that part of it. And, look, man, Hugh Freeze had his hands a lot of places because he felt like he had to upgrade the talent, and maybe to the detriment of some of the guys that were on this team because he didn't spend enough time reinforcing that culture last year. This year, I think he's learned that lesson, and you'll see more energy go into that area. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I thought that story was kind of relevant to what we were talking about.
No, it is. And I have this one for you, and then I'll pass it to Blake, and we'll kind of get off the culture stuff and talk more about the team. But I know when you say that, I'm thinking, okay, that's well and good. You got a basketball team, you have, 12 to 15 people versus a football team with 75 to 85 guys on it. So do you think, like a coach can only have so many effect on that guys? You think back to the 04 and the 2010 teams, we think of strong senior upperclassmen leadership on those teams. Do you think that we have that on this year's squad? And like some of these portal guys that come in, do you think that they at least have that mentality and not this just like kind of more of the mercenary for hire kind of mentality we saw from some of the portal guys last year?
Ask me this question again 3 days into fall camp. Because for the guys who came into fall camp, right now, they're going through some of the worst workouts they've ever been through in their life this summer. Right? And there's something about going through that with your teammates that forges like a bond that it's hard to do in any other way. So if you ask me this again about I'll be able to tell you 3 days in the camp whether you've got that leadership there and whether guys are, submitting to it. Because to your point, Dustin, you got way more people on a football team. So it's not just about coaches. You need players to hold other players accountable when you've got so many guys. You do. Yeah. And you need that in every single position group. Right? That's why they put the culture council in place. They picked guys from all those rooms and said, you are the best of the best as far as attitude and effort is concerned. And we're depending on you to make sure that everybody's standard of attitude and effort matches yours on and off the field, in practice and in the classroom, in the community, right? Like at your grandmama's house, wherever you're at, you're doing the right things when nobody is looking.
Yep.
That's what the culture counts. That's why Hugh Freeze started it. He said this, and I'm quoting him verbatim. I think the best teams are player-led teams. Right? Well, you need players who understand what that means, but that's not just you just don't come in knowing that. That's taught. So the hope is that Hugh is teaching that to these guys. And listen, man, if you've ever listened to Hugh Freeze like get on a roll, it's like Sunday Easter church, man. He like when he's preaching, right? And so at the end of the day, that's what I think is happening. And he had one more offseason to try to instill that. In that first offseason, it's difficult because you're a lot of different places. This year, I think a lot of these guys understand who Hugh Freeze is, what he expects, and what they have to do to stay in his favor and win football games. That understanding can go a long way in year 2.
Love that, Mike. Hey, I take some heat on here sometimes because I like talking about how Nick Saban ran his program. And I look at guys like Terry and Arnold, all right, on that Alabama roster. And he'll tell you straight up if you follow him on TikTok or anything like that, Coach Saban was just the culture. It's like you did it the right way. And I try to look at it like Hugh Freeze is not trying to be like Alabama or mirror them, but you gotta do it that way, or these kids are just gonna walk all over you. And I think that's kind of what happened last year. And so I think Hugh is cracking down, man. I think he's trying to get his guys in here and he's trying to run it the right way and not be the Auburn of past, right? Where at the end of the Gus era, we kind of saw guys were getting away with stuff and, a bunch of crap was happening. And, this past year we had key players not showing up to workouts and late for practice and all that stuff. So I like what he's doing, man. And we talked about the transfer portal right there. And I want to pick your brain, man, and just ask you if you had to throw it out there and just make a prediction, which one of these portal guys would you say makes the biggest impact in 2024? Just a guess.
Yeah, it's going to be Lambert Smith, right?
Love it.
it's going to be Lambert Smith. Now you have a guy who came from another Power 5 program, and he was their leading receiver. And though he didn't set the world on fire from a yardage standpoint, he had more receptions than any receiver on Auburn's team had targets. Yep. That's tough. More receptions than any receiver had targets. So he's going to be, I think, a good impact guy. Look, man, football is football, so it doesn't matter that he's on a new team, man. You run out there, you turn around, and you catch the damn ball.
Yep.
It's football, right? And you need guys who will go out there and win more than they lose on those routes, right? Run the right route, be where the quarterback expects you to be, and fight for the football if it's close, right? If it's close, Auburn's got to win more of those 50-50 balls. So we already know Cam Coleman's one of those guys. If you get two of those guys on the field at a time, that's it. You didn't bring Lambert Smith here to sit. And you spent a whole season talking about wide receivers and catch radius, and he provides you that. So I don't know how it's not Lambert Smith. The only way it's not him is if the quarterback legit is just not throwing the ball. I talked about this on Twitter earlier today where, I kind of made a statement that Payton Thorne is going to be closer this year to 2021, 2022 Payton Thorne than he was to 2023 Payton Thorne. Now, what does that mean? Well, between the 2021 and 2022 seasons, he averaged 3,000 yards passing each year, like 2,800 in 2022 and 3,200. So split the difference, 3,000, right? Last year, 1,700. Yikes, right? So are we to sit here and believe there was 1,000 yards of drop off from his worst season as a starter because of him? No, there weren't, because the averages don't say that, right? He was somewhere in the low 60s in terms of completion percentage, and that held true. As a matter of fact, I think he had a better completion percentage last year than he did in 2022.
Yep.
However, by 1%, but still, you know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
And so if that is true, well, what was different? Well, the difference was you took 140 pass attempts away from him. You took the ball out of his hands because you said you didn't trust the receivers. A lot of them, look, they brought in Hooks and Shorter,
Warner,
and they didn't work out. None of those guys worked out, but you brought those guys in. So now you've got Robert Lewis and you've got Lambert Smith. Now, I don't want to hear a damn thing about Sam Jackson until we see it.
Yeah, gotta see it.
Yeah, until we see it, don't talk to me about Sam Jackson, right? So I think now that you've got Lambert Smith in here, because everybody made a bubble. Jackson caught 2 passes, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, 2 passes!" All right, if things go as planned, right? You've got Cam and you've got Lambert Smith on the outsides, and you've got Robert Lewis at the slot, first position at the slot. If you're running 12 personnel, and then you've got some combination of Rivaldo Fairweather and Luke Deal or Michael Riley Ducker or Frazier, I think it is on the other side, right? The way I'm seeing it is that I think, I asked Hugh Freeze this during our one-on-one if we see more 10 and 11 personnel, and he was like, well, you would think. And I was like, well, I don't think. That's why I'm asking you, Coach. And he kind of hinted that we may, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be more 12 than people anticipate, which leaves you with Cam and Lambert Smith as your playmakers. And he's got to have proof of concept this year if he wants to continue the recruiting momentum.
Yep.
Which means you have to throw the ball to the guys on the outside. If Cam Coleman isn't a top 5 most targeted wide receiver in the conference last year, we messed up. We didn't do something right. But to do that, you have to give those pass attempts back to Payton Thorne that you took away from him last year because you said you didn't trust the receivers. Well, now you got your top 5 overall recruit in the whole country at receiver. And you threw it to him like that during the spring. So if the spring game was any indication of what they're going to do during the games, then we know Cam Coleman is going to get his, right? Then you said, you know what? We're not done yet because we're not sure Perry Thompson is going to be that dude just yet. So let's go out and let's give him some time to develop and let's get an experienced guy. Now we know USC was looking at Lambert Smith. He had a visit scheduled there that he ended up canceling, and he ended up at Auburn.
Yep.
And I think he ended up here because it was a slam dunk that he was going to be the other dude on the outside. He had more production than any receiver Auburn had on the roster last year, including Fairweather. So he starts, and he's got to be the guy, I think, the transfer that you look at and you say, hey, listen, if you're going to give all these pass attempts back to Payton Thorne, who's going to benefit that from the most? DeAndre Lambert-Smith. That's the guy.
Love the answer. Love it. I'm right there with you. I think he's going to be a heck of a player at Auburn. Mike G, I think the entire Auburn fan base is really pumped that Keldrick Faulk got the nod to go to SEC Media Days. Yeah, I know you guys will be out there covering it. Everybody in here, please watch that. They do an awesome job. But, man, how do you think the locker room feels with Keldrick getting the nod? And is he going to be that guy that steps up this year in that locker room and takes control of that defense and really puts the foot to the pedal and makes it happen in year two?
There are two thoughts when you choose for Media Days. It is a combination between your best players and your most well-spoken players, right? And in a perfect world, those two are the same person. So, Keldrick Faulk being chosen, I think, says something about where they feel like he is as a leader on this team, right? And where his talent is at. So, if they're taking him, he's earned it. Media Days is an honor that has to be earned. That's why they didn't take Payton Thorne last year. There was no way for him to earn it coming in after the spring, right? But this year they felt like he earned it. So I was happy to see him on the list because it shows that he's getting a true vote of confidence from Hugh Freeze to go. And I think all the guys on the list that got chosen, that's what this is. This is a vote of confidence in them, right? Last year they took Cam Stutz, Luke Deal, and
boy from Vanderbilt.
Yes, yeah, I literally sat down and I literally just interviewed him. And so, look, man, Luke and Elijah were mostly vocal leaders last year. Yeah, we're being real. Stutz was like the only guy in there that was like a bona fide starting type dude. So this year, I think you've got more guys who are going to play, and that's ideally where you want to be if you're Hugh Freeze, right? Payton Thorne, you've already put your weight behind him, and you've decided to take Keldrick, and I think that is a great idea. Now, Eugene is a very outspoken. If they didn't take Eugene, I was going to be upset. I was going to be real upset if they didn't take Eugene Asante. So they decided they got that right. I think they got Payton Thorne right, and I think that they're getting it right here with Keldrick as well too. But I'm happy to see him on the list. I think it's a good indication that guys are stepping up and becoming the type of players that they want to see.
Man, what would be the feeling? What would be the feeling not only around the Auburn fan base, but if Payton would have got left off and not went this year? How do you think that would have went?
Oof! If Payton Thorne did not make Media Days, Hugh Freeze would be a liar. Again, he's put his weight behind Payton Thorne and said he's going to be our guy. We're rolling with Payton. He said that since almost after the bowl game. And he's been pretty consistent with it. A lot of the hype that you heard about other quarterbacks maybe coming in, those were media narratives. Those were not Hugh Freeze narratives.
Yeah.
There's a lot of media people around there spreading stuff about Cam Ward for clicks and other guys for clicks, right? And and if you listen to us, we told you consistently Auburn wasn't going to pick up a portal QB this offseason. And you know what happened? They didn't pick one up. So, that being said, I just think, when you look at it, if he had not selected Payton Thorne, it would have meant everything that he said about Payton Thorne in the lead up to this meant nothing. And I know that he knows that. He's not dumb. Because I just put my weight behind this guy. If I don't take my super senior, this is like his 8th year of college, it feels like. But if I don't take this guy who I paid $500,000 for and he's in his 2nd year and I've consistently gotten behind him and made excuses for him, then what am I doing? I'm setting him up to be criticized. If you're Hugh Freeze, you can't set Payton Thorne up that way. You have to take him, right? You have to take him. And I hope that it would, like I said, I personally believe it's because Payton has improved. in every aspect. But I also think it's that they take responsibility for where he wasn't good last year in some aspects. And I think they have to wear that and they have to own that. And so, like, if you're asking Payton to captain the ship, then you got to let him captain the ship. And that means going to media days, because there's no team with a solidified starter at quarterback in this conference that's not taking their QB to media days. Can you imagine if Georgia didn't take Carson Beck to media days?
Yep.
People would be like, what the hell did Carson do?
I feel like the fan base, the Auburn fan base, I feel like it would have melted on Twitter.
It would have been an epic meltdown. Yeah. Freeze is not that. He's not that foolish. Yeah. He knew he had to take him. Right.
No, Mike, you've interviewed him, right? And my last one for you is we've all seen the pictures of him with the gold top, Miller Lite, and the stogie at Talladega. And I just feel like he's starting to come out of his shell a little bit. And there's some guys on the baseball team that I've kind of talked to that aren't from the South. And they've come down and they've said, hey, look, it takes a little while to get used to it. It's just different, the North versus the South. We had a receiver be vocal about Brian Harsin. And he said, hey, look, I'm from the South. He's from the North. It's just different, right? And so I feel like Payton's starting to open up and he's starting to embrace the town of Auburn and he's starting to get out in public and relax and have fun and maybe open up to some teammates. When you did that interview and being around the team, what have you saw from teammates and Payton Thorne that has you so confident in him in the 2024 season?
Look, man, Payton likes Auburn. First of all, he's never disliked Auburn.
Yeah,
he likes it here, and I think it's maybe a little different at first, but it's all Auburn easily charms guys. Like, there's a charm to Auburn that everybody falls in love with once they get here. But I think it was a difficult first year for him, wearing a lot of blame for why things weren't going the way that people thought they should have gone.
Yep.
Now, he owns some of that, but I also think that there were some things that were systemic that Payton will never say out loud, but I'll say it for him. This offense was messed up last year.
Yep.
Right? It was messed up. And, Hugh Freeze's involvement and non-involvement and all that, I mean, all that had an effect on Payton Thorne, on everybody on offense, but I think on the quarterback even more so. Because, when it's going well, they coaches say all this time, when it's going well, quarterback gets way too much praise and maybe way too much of the blame at the same time as well, too. Well, the blame part, these guys are human. And Blakey gets to them at times.
Yep.
Right? It does. And so in talking to him, it felt like the behind-the-scenes things had been fixed to the extent that he felt confident that we would see a different product on the field this year. Now, what are those things? Well, that's between me and Payton. But I'll tell you, it was convincing to me that, listening to him talk and being able to sit in front of him and see his face and hear the inflection of his voice and feel like this guy believes what he's saying. Like, he's not coach speaking me right now.
Yeah.
He really feels like this is going to be different. And look, it was my first time getting a one-on-one with Payton Thorne. Obviously, I've talked to him in press conferences. But I appreciate the candor with which he spoke before and after that interview. He said some things that he didn't have to say. And like I said, I'm going to respect, the privacy of some of those things. But, it made me more optimistic. And I'll tell you what, I keep the same energy for all the programs that we cover. When we talk to the players and look, I've done enough of these to know when they're really bought in and they're media speaking.
Yeah.
Right. Johnny Harris's players, let me tell you something, those girls are bought in. Right. I mean, if you're watching this, Clarence, Tim the Tool Main, some Auburn dad, have your Vegas friend go put $500 on Auburn women's basketball to make the Sweet 16. And then meet me out there to go cash out next March.
Love that.
Right. That's how confident I am when players indicate to me that they're bought in. And so after talking to Payton, I felt I had that same feeling. Now, you guys remember last December on Twitter, I said, hey, I think Auburn has 2 tournament teams. And people came after me and were like, pump the brakes because they might start 0-9 in the SEC. And I told the guy who said that, I said, If you think they're going to start 0-9 in conference play, you haven't watched 1 second of this team. There's no way anybody who's watched them thinks they're going to start 1-9.
Yeah.
Now they started 0-3, and I was like, God, please don't let this douchebag be right. and their first SEC win was the defending national champions, LSU. Yeah. And the belief that they drew from that, because no matter how they started the season, they believed they were going to win that game. They believed they were going to beat LSU. They never lost belief in themselves, and belief is such a powerful thing. Hugh Freeze is a man of faith, so you're not telling me he doesn't think that belief is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So when players believe it, and they say, hey, look, it changes something about the way you go about your day-to-day, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe in the guy who's leading me there. And that's Payton Thorne this year. I don't think that was Payton Thorne last year. I don't know how much he believed last year.
Yeah.
But he's had a year to buy in, and they've had a year to show him that they're committed to being the best coaching staff they can be, not just for the team, but for him as well, too. So, I mean, to close and answer your question, it was the belief that convinced me, right? And it was, again, I know when these guys are you know what I mean? Media speaking me, right? Yep. Like I don't want to I don't want to demonetize you guys, but like,
we're good. We do it all the time.
Okay, yeah, right. Not my show, so I don't. But like, I know when they're doing that, and he definitely did not do that. And one of the great things about the one-on-ones now, we do a lot of them at Vintage. We're having steak and cheesecake, and like everybody's eating their favorite fruit, and they're relaxed. And in that environment, one of the reasons why we do that in that environment is to get them in a mind frame to share honestly. Every single athlete that sat down with us in that environment has done that. And Payton was no different. I came out of it a Payton Thorne fan. I was pretty hard on him last year. And listen, I stand by the things I said last year. I think that there were a lot of things that he could have done better himself. 100%. There were things independent of system and receivers that Payton Thorne could have done better. But he knew where he signed up for. Yeah, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, this year, I think that he's accepted that he's got to be a better quarterback for his receivers. But he feels like everybody else feels like they need to be better for him as well, too. And when you get guys out there fighting for each other like that, man, I think that's what makes a good team. And whether it results in wins, well, the team on the other side of the field has something to say about that as well, too, because they're trying to do the same thing you're doing. But I don't know, man. Like, there's been a lot of, like, the predictions on the season. It never shocks me. It ranges from complete disaster, doom to holy crap, sunshine pump, right? And, I've always been kind of right in the middle. I said on Locked On, I thought that the ceiling for this team was 7-5. I got taken to the woodshed over that. And after talking to Payton, I said, I'll give you guys an extra win. I'll raise that to 8-5. And I think that's a great season for Auburn football.
Yeah.
Or 8-4 regular season. And then we'll see what happens in the bowl game. But like an 8-1 season, I think would be a huge win, because you start out with 5 straight home games, which, by the way, is not good for fans.
Yeah, it's not.
5 straight home games is not good for fans. It's not good for any team. And then you don't play a game at home for a month.
Yep.
Right. And then you got some combination of like road and home games to end the season. But like, if they can get off to a quick start, and that's your hope for Payton Thorne, get him off to a quick start.
Yeah.
Right. In there. And if he's not going to play well, pull the plug before Arkansas. And do not throw Hank Brown to the Wolves versus Oklahoma.
When you talk about belief, Mike, this is why the Oklahoma game stands out to me as the second most important game on the schedule. Me and Blake are always going to have the Iron Bowl as number 1. But Auburn should start 4-0. We all acknowledge that. You got 4 games at home. You're going to be favored in. You should win those games. So I feel like the Oklahoma game is going to be a close game versus a big-time program in Oklahoma. It's going to be their first time coming to Jordan-Hare, first time as a member of the SEC, and we play them, all that, right? It's going to be a close game, tie ball game, 1-possession game in the fourth quarter. And then that Java monster is going to rear his head, and it's up to us to slay him, Mike. It's up to us to knock down the 4th and 31 Hail Mary. It's up to us to make the free throws versus Yale. It's up to us to tag the runner that's running the third or make the throw to first base when you're playing Mississippi State in the College World Series. It's up to us. That big moment's going to come again. I believe it's going to be that Oklahoma game. And if you want me, just putting me, the fan, take the, podcast media, whatever you want to call it aside, show me in that game because I think it's going to be a close game. And I think that if Auburn's able to finish that game out and get to 5-0, even if your next 3 games on the road will be at Georgia, then at Missouri, then at Kentucky, even if you only win one of those, then you're sitting 6-2 with the back half of the schedule that's pretty damn manageable, and you can find those 8. I think that Oklahoma game, Mike, is huge for belief. If you can get there and you can come out of that game, which I think will be tight. Now, obviously, if you blow Oklahoma out, then you really, we're really going to start booking. But if you can get out of there, man, and go 5-0, I feel like the fan base will start to actually have some belief. Because right now, we all talk to fans, right? Like, you got your sunshine pumpers, but the pessimistic attitude in the fan base right now has been earned with 3 straight losing seasons and not knocking down that ball versus Alabama and that performance in Nashville and all that. Like, just speak to how important that Oklahoma game is.
Yeah, listen, you're not wrong about the importance of that game.
Yep.
I got a little bit of different take on how I think it's going to go. I think, Dustin, is either a close Auburn win or Oklahoma wins by 2 scores.
That's I hear you. I mean, I'm not predicting Auburn to win it right now.
Yeah. If Auburn wins, it's probably going to be close. If Oklahoma wins, it's not going to be close in the last 8 minutes of that game. So if you're Auburn, you fight, and I think that home field advantage wins out if it's close. Oklahoma's going to learn a thing or two about the SEC this year.
Yep.
Right. Like the thing I love about Oklahoma and Texas joining the conference is we get to see games that would only be bowl games before in the past. Yep. It's going to be amazing to watch. And so you have Oklahoma coming to Auburn for the first time. Now, we're assuming that Auburn beats Cal and Arkansas and goes into that game for at least 4-0. I think we can all agree a loss to Arkansas or Cal is a disaster.
Panic.
Right, yeah, like that's hit the panic button, right? Yep. And I don't care how close that game to Cal was. It shouldn't have been close. They are bums, and they should be super bums when they come east. To hell with those guys. Dude, you are better than Cal in every way possible, right?
230 Cape, Mike. It's going to be hot.
A dude who was playing quarterback there last year, Dustin, is a backup receiver on our team.
Right.
Come on, man. You're better than them, and you know it. So go out there and crush them like it's your Super Bowl and make sure that they understand this is your Cal. I want you to hear me. If any Cal fans watch this in the future, you are part of the reason that your conference no longer exists. You guys suck and terrible. They play awful defensive football out there, and they cannot come to Jordan-Hare and get a win. That's a disaster for Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
Absolutely cannot. Now, Jaden Ott's okay, but listen, when I interviewed Eugene Asante, I'm going to repost this clip. He said it. He was like, listen, we heard that dude last year when he was yapping. We heard him, and it was bulletin board material for Auburn. They knocked him out of the game. He didn't have a terrible game. He didn't break 100 yards, though. And they knocked him out. So if he's coming to Jordan-Hare, let's see if he's talking this time. Let's see if he's talking this time. So you that's your second game of the season. You knock them out, and you go in and you get your second easy win versus New Mexico. And then Arkansas, like, look, man, it's the SEC, so anything can happen. But that's a team that you're better than too. You should beat them. I'm sorry.
They're
that
cooked.
game's at home. Yeah, like I'm just listening. Much love to my guy T. Will out there. Former classmate and friend. His wife is a good friend of mine, lifelong friend of mine. But like, there's just no way you're losing that. You should lose to that team. But if you do, for somehow lose one of the first 4, then that Oklahoma game becomes crucial.
Yeah, gotta win then.
Yeah. You got to be 4-1 going into Georgia somehow. Right. And I think that fans could stomach a loss to Oklahoma, but any loss before Oklahoma might take the air out of that game some. So, I talked to Josh Pate about this. He said, I don't think anybody's going to have that Auburn-Oklahoma game on their game of the week slate, but it might be a really good one, and it sets you up for a top 25 matchup versus Georgia if you win it, and you're going into that game 5-0. You play it right, yeah. And then in October, like I said, I just think Auburn has to win one game.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You only play 3 in October, right? But if you lose, right, like to Oklahoma, you don't play another home game until November. So I'm with you, Justin. I think that game is absolutely critical, and they have to get that one, and we'll see what Hugh Freeze has cooked up for that one. But the hope is that Payton Thorne is cooking by that time. By Oklahoma, by game 4, Payton Thorne's cooking. Right after 4 games, Payton Thorne's cooking, and you go in and you make that a thing, because I think they're good. I think Brett Venables is going to give Auburn his absolute best shot in that game. And I don't think he's doing great down there right now, but like I don't know, like that game worries me, and we'll see. I hope they should bring the wagon down just so they can turn it over. Right? I think that's the worst tradition in college football.
It's brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. I like Auburn in that game. I think Oklahoma having to play Tennessee the week before, I think that's going to be a tough matchup for the Sooners. Josh Heupel making his way back to Norman and all that, and Nico Lama-Lavea making his presence be known. I think he rips the Sooners defense, and I think the Sooners come limping into Jordan-Hare. And I think Auburn, yes. Okay. Look, the reason I say that is because you're going to get a little taste of not having 30 days to prepare for an SEC team. Yeah. And then you scream SEC after you win. Because then the next week, hey, guess what? You got to go down to Alabama and play Auburn on the Plains. And then, it's a brutal schedule. And like I told my buddy Josh, look, he loves Oklahoma, and I thought we had a great episode, but there ain't no Iowa State, all right? And then the next week you get to go to Baylor, and then the next week you get to go to TCU, all right? It's just that's not how it works in the SEC. And I was looking at last year, the grind. We talk about the grind with Oklahoma coming from the Big 12. Mississippi State played Arizona. And Mississippi State beat an Arizona team that ended up winning 10 games last year. Right? Mm-hmm. That same Arizona team beat Oklahoma in their bowl game. Now, I know players sit out and all that stuff, but Mississippi State won one conference game last year. They beat Arkansas. And they dominated an Arizona team that was at the top of the Pac-12 last year in a pretty good Pac-12. Pac-12 played in the national championship game last year. So, I mean, to me, that's just the grind of the SEC. Mississippi State was terrible last year. They went through so much, and you go out and you beat Arizona, and then Arizona turns around and beats Oklahoma in the bowl game. That's the grind, man. That's the SEC. That's why it's the greatest conference in college athletics to me. So, I like Auburn.
Yeah, this Oklahoma schedule, this is going to be a hard schedule they've seen in quite some time. I mean, they got to go do Auburn. They've got the Red River rivalry. Of course, they weren't going to take that away from them. You're at Ole Miss, which will probably be top 10. And I don't know if you've seen their schedule, but they definitely should be like 7-0 going into that game. Yeah. You're at Missouri, another potential top 10 matchup. You're versus Alabama. Like you've got LSU on the schedule. I mean, this is a pretty tough schedule they've got. Yeah. So man, I'm looking forward to their downfall in a lot of ways. I just hope it starts on the plane September 28th.
Yeah, it's fun. A lot of their fans are in the comments from the episode Blake did with the Oklahoma guy, and it's just they keep kind of quoting their record versus the SEC, and it's like, yeah, I'm not arguing that. Like Blake said, you get 30 days to game plan. You meet us up on a neutral field. That's not the argument. I think that you mentioned Josh Payton. I think he has the best argument for it. That it's the games that you win. Even the games that they win will stack up. They might beat a Mississippi State or a team of that caliber 30-17, 30-21 and get out of there like that. But it's going to feel a lot different than when you played Texas Tech. Like the next day in the training room, you're going to feel different. It's going to feel a little bit different, and we'll see how they hold up. I'm really excited for it, Mike. I can't wait for the season to get here. Yeah. We are we're in the dog days, man, but we are on the way. And before we get out of here, Mike, just let everybody know what you got going on, man. What's going on?
Just check us out over on YouTube. I see a lot of common names here in the chat. Yeah. We're going out to media days next week. Ike and I will be there all week. It's going to be a blast. You don't want to miss it. Tune in to the SEC Network. They're going to have a lot of coverage there. I'm not saying that you won't see us on the SEC Network, but, tune in and see. But we'll be there all week giving you guys coverage. Hugh Freeze doesn't go until Thursday. I think that he got Sam Pittman, Mike Elko, and some other bum. It wasn't a great day. It was not like I was like, oh, this is not a great day. I think like Wednesday was probably the best day because we got DeBoer and Sarkisian on the same day. I think you got Napier and God, man. I mean, the schedule's escaping me right now, but it was Tuesday and Wednesday seemed like they were going to be the days there. They saved Hugh Freeze for last this year. So he'll be the second coach to go on the main stage on Thursday. But so we're going to stay there all week, but we'll be there Sunday through Thursday, bringing you guys coverage. So just look out, subscribe. It's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. Blake, I know that you had something that you wanted to speak on. Before we do that, man, everybody reminding y'all, hit that sub button. We're right there at 2,000. Hit that like button. I love each and every one of y'all, and I'm going to let Blake close us out.
Yeah, look, Chad, there's a big-time college program and coach, Big 12 Media Days. He steps up to the mic today, and he is addressing one of his players who is a Heisman frontrunner who had a DUI, I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And they asked him, why did you bring him to Big 12 Media Days? This is Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. And he said, well, I wanted to let him face the noise, right? I wanted to let him be here and answer the questions and be in the middle of everything that has went on. You got to face the noise and be an adult. I'm cool with that. All right. I'm cool with you bringing him to Big 12 Media Days. I'm cool with you letting him answer the questions. All right. What I'm not cool with is when they ask you, what is his punishment? And you respond with me handing him the ball 50 times in week 1. And that's how we'll let it play out. Folks, we just lost 3 former college football players. One, Kyrie Jackson, who was a former Alabama player who transferred to Oregon, who was working at a grocery store while he was going through tough times in life and got his life back on track, ended up getting drafted into the NFL draft. We just lost 3 guys that played in this sport that we all love to a drunk driver, 24 years old. And for Mike Gundy to come out and say that this is Ollie Gordon's punishment. Folks, it's nothing. Look, a Heisman Trophy isn't that important, dog. It's not. It's not. Drinking and driving, it's bad. It's bad. And look, I'm a father of 2, and it's uncalled for. It's uncalled for. It's not a mistake. It's a piss poor decision, and you got to hold somebody accountable. And saying that you can give him the ball 50 times in week 1 and that's how you'll let it play out is disgusting, in my opinion. And saying that you've done that 1,000 times in your life and he only had 3 or 4 beers, look, I don't care. He was drunk. If you don't want to say anything, then don't say anything. Just say, hey, look, we'll handle it in-house. But for you to come out and make a statement like that, it's just absolutely wild to me. And it's not teaching Ollie Gordon a damn thing. Nothing. That you can go out and you can do this and you get to suit up week 1 because you're a Heisman Trophy front runner. That's all it's telling me. And to me, that is piss poor as a D1 football coach that you take that route, man. Especially after the tragedy that we just had over the weekend. I don't know how you address it like that. It's piss poor to me. And, look, there's a couple things. It just doesn't sit well with me, man. Like, there's a couple things that hit the internet. Like Rico Knows made the TikTok going out there and saying that Kyrie was a terrible person and you know, he basically deserved what he got because he was out past midnight. Everything, folks, what are we doing? Like, this isn't the route. It's not the way to go. Why are you making a post like that? Kid was 24 years old, living out his dream with two of his best friends in high school. We got to be better, man. We got to be better as people. Think before you say something that dumb. And Mike Gundy just lost it for me today. Like when I saw the clip, you lost it. Rico knows you lost your platform to me. It's just that's bum stuff. It's bum. Like, you're worthless to me now. Like I don't follow you to begin with, but it's just, come on, we got to be better as people, man. It's bad stuff, and I'm disappointed in Mike Gundy, Dustin. I think it was just terrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I was like, this is really the route. Like, you would have been better off just not answering the question and saying no comment, bro. That was a wild route to take.
Did you not have a PR person say, hey, look? Yeah, I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
What could you imagine if Hugh Freeze said something like that? What AL.com and ESPN would do?
Grilling.
It's all you'd see. Or if BP
Grilling.
said something like that, it's all you'd see. Look, man, we'll be back later in the week with another episode. Shout out to our guy Mike G. I did something for you members today. I hope y'all enjoy it. So we'll catch y'all on the next one, man. We're getting closer to this football season, y'all. That video game dropping next week for our members. We got that online dynasty. We're picking teams tomorrow night. So if you're interested in joining that and you haven't, get at me and Blake on the DMs on Twitter, and we'll be setting that up. We love y'all, man. War Damn Eagle. We'll catch y'all on the next one. We're out of here.
War Damn, baby.